The last behavior I'll show you in this lesson is the open browser behavior. And to work on that one, I want you to open up your Files panel again, and I want you to find the main index page in the site, version index3.html, which I've carefully set up precisely for this part of the lesson. As I show you this one, I want you to bear in mind that all of the behaviors work similarly. In each case, whether you're using a rollover or an on-click, whether you're swapping an image or swapping an element, or in this case, opening a new browser window, the same basic concept of choosing an action and then setting up a trigger to serve as the event applies to almost any behavior you'll use. In this case, I want to set it up so that when a user clicks on one of these thumbnails, they open a larger version of this painting in a little browser window that sort of hovers over this page. This is an especially cool behavior for working with things like video, where you might want to have a little browser window that plays the video separate from your main window. The first thing you have to do when you set up an Open New Browser Window option is to create the pages that will open in that browser window. So if you come back over to the Files panel, I want you to see that in this version of the site, I have 4 special pages that I've created here. And if you double-click on any of them, you'll see this is just a simple blank page with nothing but the image. Remember, this image does have the caption already in it. So I have a page called Rocky-Amber that has the larger version of this. I have a page called Monastery Cat that has a larger version of that image. And I have one for each of these 4 images. But these are just plain, normal HTML pages, nothing special about them. The way I'm going to control the size of the browser window is not by specifying it here in the actual page that opens, but by specifying it here as I set the behavior. You could set this behavior by clicking on a small image like this and simply selecting the behavior. But in the case up here, I'm looking at one big image. So I'm going to add one more complexity to how we set this up. I'm going to use the image map feature to select only this region of the image, and then I'm going to set up the behavior for that image map selection just the same way I would set it up if I had selected a thumbnail like this one. To create the image map region, you want to select the image, and then in the image map options, in the bottom of the Properties Inspector, select the rectangle. If you don't see these options, make sure you've clicked on the little arrow in the bottom right corner of the Properties Inspector and opened it up completely. With that image map rectangle selected, I can click and drag to create a hotspot on this image. When I do so, because I have accessibility features turned on in Preferences, Dreamweaver lets me know that I should describe this image map in the Alt field. So if I click OK, I'm going to go do that right away so I don't forget. Now again, you can type as much or as little text as you want in the Alt area, but I like to include a description wherever possible. So here I'm just typing, this image map region links to a larger version of the Edgar and Amber painting. Now instead of creating just a simple link from this, which you could easily do by clicking on the arrow now and just using the Browse button to create a normal link, instead I'm going to associate this hotspot with a behavior. So let me close the Files panel here, give myself a little more room. And again, I'm setting this behavior the same way I would if this were just a simple image. Choosing from the Behaviors option, I want the Open Browser window. And in this dialog, the first thing I want to do is to choose the page that will display when this event is triggered. So I'm going to browse, and I'm going to find that other page that I created. In the Banner Pages folder is my Rocky and Amber page. Now I have the option to set the width and height of the browser window. If I left these blank, this browser window would open to whatever the default setting is for your visitor. But if I set this to 520 by 440, then I'm going to get a nice little window sized for the bigger version of this image, which is actually 520 by 420, but I want to leave a little extra breathing room at the bottom. You also have a number of options for attributes. I'm going to use scroll bars as needed. That simply means that if your visitor's window is too small To view everything in the browser window at once, a scroll bar will appear so they can scroll up and down. Click OK, and let's save this, preview, and you see now when I click on this hotspot, I bring up a separate browser window with that image. Let's do that one more time just to make sure you have the hang of it. Remember, I'm first creating a hotspot on the image map, but if I were using a simple image as a trigger, I would just select that image. I want to click and drag to create the hotspot. I'll enter something simpler for the alt text this time, just in the interest of moving more quickly. So let me just type in the kindness of animals page, because that's where this will link. And now let's apply the behavior open browser window. We're going to link this to the kindness page. Again, I get to specify the height and width. You should base the height and width of the page on what's displayed within the page. So I'm basing that on the size of this image. If you were using this with a page that had a video on it, for example, then you might size this to the size of the video display. Again, I always recommend scroll bars as needed, even though they're clearly not needed in this case. You never know for sure how big somebody's monitor might be. Click OK. Preview. Of course, Dreamweaver is going to prompt me to save the page before we preview. Now, because I diminished that last time, I have to Alt-Tab to get back over to Firefox. And you see I've set up Kindness of Animals, just like I've set up the Rocky and Amber page. And that's how easy it is to use the open browser behavior.